The air in the stone drawing room always felt thin, like oxygen had been carefully rationed and only allotted to those deemed socially worthy. It was a frigid Saturday afternoon in early December, and the scent of expensive pine and condescension hung heavy in the air. I, Amelia Vance, the chief recipient of the latter, stood near the towering, perfectly decorated Christmas tree, nursing a glass of watered-down champagne and trying my best to appear decorative and silent. This was the annual pre-Christmas planning meeting, a tradition that sounded functional but was actually an elaborate, 2-hour exhibition of my mother-in-law, Patricia Stern's, power and exquisite taste. I was the foreign body in this polished ecosystem. My husband, Mark, was a Stern by birth, but I was merely an annexation, a successful, self-made woman whose startup capital hadn't come from inherited trust funds but from late nights, cheap coffee, and a ruthless belief in my own ideas. To Patricia, this made me vulgar. I ran a company that designed algorithms for sustainable urban planning, a fact she often omitted by referring to my career vaguely as something involving screens and cities. She preferred the narrative that I had snared her son, overlooking the fact that Mark was a middle manager at a private equity firm while I was currently valued at a figure that made his entire firm look like a quaint hobby. This inherent tension was the silent background music to every gathering we had. I watched Patricia now, her silver hair coiled into a perfect chignon, effortlessly directing the placement of antique silver reindeer on the mahogany mantelpiece. She moved with the slow, deliberate grace of someone who knew her every gesture was being recorded and judged for posterity. "Amelia, darling, you seem rather lost," she chirped, her voice perfectly modulated, the tone of a gentle predator spotting an easy target. I offered a smile that felt tight around the edges. "Just admiring the tree, Patricia. It's truly magnificent." It was, in fact, grotesque, a 12-foot spruce drowning under the weight of decades of inherited, mismatched ornaments, each with a story about a European vacation or a prestigious boarding school that I hadn't attended. My own childhood Christmas tree was a $25 balsam fir from a parking lot that we decorated with popcorn strings and construction paper stars. The comparison always felt like a physical weight. Clara, Mark's sister, stood beside Patricia, looking at me with her usual expression of thinly veiled contempt. Clara, who spent her days managing a non-profit that seemed to primarily host expensive luncheons, was Patricia's perfect mini-me. "Are you sure you're not just thinking about work, Amelia?" Clara asked, her eyes narrowing slightly. "We wouldn't want those algorithms to spontaneously start dictating the seating arrangements, would we?" The small joke was met with a polite, brittle laugh from Mark's Uncle George, a man whose entire personality was built around his collection of rare single malt scotch. It was a small barb, but it served its purpose, to remind me, yet again, that my success was a joke in their world. My work was frivolous compared to their inherited good breeding. I simply raised my champagne glass slightly. "No, Clara. I was actually considering how much the insurance premium must be on that 18th century porcelain shepherdess. If it were mine, I'd keep it in a bank vault." The air snapped, just for a moment. The shepherdess was Patricia's prized possession, and commenting on its monetary value was considered extremely tacky. Patricia quickly recovered, her smile hardening. "Some things, Amelia, are simply too beautiful to hide away. They are meant to be shared. That's the difference between collecting assets and curating a legacy." Curating a legacy. That was the Stearns' defining motto, a fancy way of saying hoarding old things and judging everyone new. Mark, who had been chatting with his father, Robert, about market fluctuations, slid over to me and discreetly squeezed my elbow. His pressure was meant to be comforting, a silent plea for me to keep the peace. I loved Mark. I truly did. But in this house, under his mother's watchful gaze, he always reverted to being the dutiful son, slightly spineless and always prioritizing family tranquility over my dignity. He didn't see the tiny cuts they administered. He was immune to them. "Dad was just talking about the gala, Amelia," Mark murmured, trying to change the subject to neutral territory. It's going to be the biggest one yet. They are unveiling the full-size Gilded Age nativity scene. Oh, marvelous, I replied, trying to inject genuine enthusiasm, but failing miserably. The Christmas Gala, held every year on December 23rd, was the Stearns' social Everest. It was where all the old money families of Greenwich, Connecticut, gathered to compare their fortunes, their children's Ivy League degrees, and the flawless patina of their false smiles. And this year, I knew, felt different. Patricia had been unusually cagey, overly sweet, and slightly too insistent that I be fully present and participate. The sheer expectation of it, the annual performance of the dutiful, grateful daughter-in-law, was already exhausting me. I realized, as I watched Patricia hand a servant a precise list of tasks, that I was no longer interested in trying to fit into their golden cage. I had my own life, my own success, and my own home. My resignation had begun to curdle into resentment. I needed an exit plan for the gala, something more creative than a sudden, manufactured bout of the flu. I needed to escape the humiliation they clearly had planned, even if I didn't yet know the details. Little did I know, that exit plan was about to fall right into my lap, not through conscious effort, but through a careless, colossal error on Clara's part. The golden cage was about to be rattled, but not by me, not yet. I took one last sip of the tepid champagne and decided I had reached my limit for inherited grandeur and veiled insults. I'm afraid I must run, I announced, forcing my voice to be cheerful, decisive, and entirely unapologetic. Patricia's eyebrows arched subtly. So early, dear? We haven't even finalized the champagne pairings yet. Oh, I'm sure you'll manage beautifully, I said, turning to Mark and placing a quick, practiced kiss on his cheek. Work calls. Big presentation on Monday. You know how it is, darling. Duty first. The word duty was the perfect little poke back, using their own language of propriety against them. I left the room, the hushed, judgmental silence of the stern drawing room closing behind me like the heavy velvet curtains they had refused to upgrade since 1985. The escape was only temporary, but the seeds of rebellion had been sown. I had survived the planning meeting, but I knew I wouldn't survive the gala without a war plan. I walked down the long, freezing driveway, pulling my borrowed coat tight, and felt a quiet, simmering anger replacing the usual anxiety. They wanted a show? They were going to get one. I just had to find out what role they had written for me first. The cold air felt clean against my skin, a sharp contrast to the suffocating warmth of their wealth. I got into my car, a sleek, modern vehicle that looked utterly out of place next to their vintage Rolls, and pulled out onto the road. The gingerbread perfect mansion receded in the rearview mirror. As I drove back toward the city, I realized I had left my work phone on the little antique desk in the hall, right next to the grandfather clock. It was a minor inconvenience, but one that would soon prove to be the luckiest mistake of my life. The humiliation plan was already in motion. What they didn't know was that I was about to intercept the script. I smiled, a genuine, cold, and calculating smile this time. They underestimated me. That was their biggest mistake. My plan for avoiding the party was about to be upgraded to a plan for detonating it. The thought felt shockingly good. I was halfway back to my apartment in Manhattan, a solid 40-minute drive from the Stearns' sprawling Greenwich estate, when the realization hit me: my phone. It was my custom-built work phone, the one with the high-level security features and the direct link to the central servers of Vance Urbanics. Leaving it was not just inconvenient, it was unprofessional, and potentially, a minor security risk. I chastised myself instantly. I was usually meticulous. Swearing under my breath, I made a sharp U-turn, the sleek car eating up the miles as I headed back to the gilded cage. The sun was already dipping, casting long, cold shadows across the manicured lawns of the wealthy suburbs. I pulled back up the Stearns' driveway, parking discreetly behind the delivery van that was dropping off what looked like 300 weight of artisanal cheese. The front door was ajar, letting out a faint echo of Uncle George's booming laughter. I slipped inside, aiming for the antique writing desk in the grand hall where I remembered placing the device. The hall was empty, but as I approached the desk, I heard voices emanating clearly from the small study tucked just around the corner, voices that belonged to Patricia and Clara. They were louder than usual, perhaps feeling safely alone now that the main meeting was over. You saw the look on her face when I brought up the screens and cities again. Clara's voice was high-pitched, filled with a giddy, mean-spirited delight. She actually tried to deflect by talking about the shepherdess insurance. The nerve. Patricia responded with a low, satisfied chuckle. She's trying too hard, dear. Always has been. Mark thinks he's married a genius, but she's just loud. And this year, we teach her a final lesson in decorum. My hand froze inches from my phone. A final lesson in decorum. That sounded far more sinister than their usual passive-aggressive sparring. My heart began to beat a little faster, a cold dread mixing with a sharp, defensive curiosity. I leaned back against the wall, flattening myself behind the enormous grandfather clock, where I could hear everything perfectly without being seen. "Are you sure about the timing, Mother?" Clara asked, her voice dropping slightly, now laced with a tremor of excitement. "Right after Robert's toast." "Perfect timing," Patricia confirmed, her tone crisp and decisive. "It will be the crescendo. The whole room will be there, the Van der Zees, the Hudsons, even Senator Thompson is confirmed. We need maximum impact." I involuntarily gripped the cold marble surface of the desk. They weren't just planning a slightly awkward seating arrangement or a comment about my dress. They were planning a public event. A spectacle. "Mark is going to be furious," Clara worried. "Mark will be fine." Patricia dismissed her son's feelings with a wave of her hand that I could almost picture. "He needs to understand that Amelia is dragging the Stern name down, especially after that abysmal pitch last month." My blood ran cold. The abysmal pitch. 3 weeks ago, Vance Urbanix had lost a massive contract, a government infrastructure deal, not because of our technology, but because the local council was embroiled in a corruption scandal that sank the entire project. It was a business failure, yes, but one that had nothing to do with my competence. "She keeps telling everyone it was political, not competence, Mother," Clara sneered. "Exactly. And that's what will prove wrong," Patricia said, her voice now dangerously low and thrilling. "I've arranged for Mr. Davies from the Sterling Review to attend. He's going to be there specifically to cover the gala. Robert is giving him an exclusive on the charity endowment." I knew the Sterling Review. It was the Bible of old money society, notorious for thinly veiled gossip presented as insightful commentary. "And the document?" Clara prompted eagerly. "The document is sealed inside the box. When Mark gives her the gift, the faux antique necklace, of course, I will prompt her to open the accompanying card, which is actually the citation," Patricia explained, savoring every word. "It's a professionally printed, notarized summary of the failed pitch, citing her personal presentation errors, which I've had Robert's lawyer draft." A choked gasp caught in my throat. I couldn't believe it. They weren't just humiliating me, they were going to professionally discredit me in front of the most influential people in my industry's orbit and then leak the story to a society columnist. This wasn't just mean, it was a calculated, malicious act designed to damage my business and my reputation beyond repair. It was a character assassination disguised as a Christmas celebration. Clara giggled. "Oh, Mother. She'll have to read it. In front of everyone. And Mr. Davies will have his exclusive angle, Vance's vanity project fails to deliver, a cautionary tale of new money." The sheer cruelty of the plan settled over me, chilling me to the bone. They wanted to tear down my life's work, the one thing that truly belonged to me and not to the Sterns, and they planned to make my husband an unwitting participant in the execution. A flash of blinding, cold fury replaced the initial shock. This was not a family. It was a hostile entity, and I was being targeted for elimination. I felt a sudden, profound clarity. I was done trying to fit in. I was done with being polite. They had crossed a line that was unforgivable, moving from petty jealousy to intentional, professional sabotage. They had drawn blood. Now, I would return the favor tenfold. I carefully, silently, retrieved my phone from the desk, ensuring the screen remained dark. My fingers wrapped around the sleek metal casing, feeling the reassuring hardness of the device that represented my actual power. I was Amelia Vance, the algorithm architect, the one who built systems that could predict and control the flow of cities. And I was about to turn my algorithmic precision onto the Stone family legacy itself. My exit was as silent as my entry. I walked past the study door, my expression unreadable. I heard Patricia concluding her plotting. It's time she understood that she is welcome here only as Mark's wife, and never as a competitor. I reached my car and started the engine. The golden cage had turned into a gilded prison, and my only option was to burn the whole thing down on my way out. The thought of revenge wasn't bitter. It was clean, precise, and utterly necessary. I drove back toward the city, no longer a nervous daughter-in-law, but a woman with a script, a target, and 20 days until Christmas. The game had just changed. I had the script, and I was about to rewrite the ending. Once I was safely back in my Manhattan apartment, the sterile, minimalist design of my living room felt like a sanctuary. I sank onto the leather sofa, the memory of Patricia and Clara's cruel, calculated laughter still echoing in my mind. The plan was staggering in its malice. A public reading of a fake, defamatory legal document disguised as a Christmas card, ensuring my professional demise was witnessed by every major figure in my industry and cemented by a society journalist. It wasn't just humiliation, it was attempted destruction. They wanted to financially and socially neuter me, ensuring I could never again challenge their established order or overshadow their precious Mark. I spent the next hour simply walking the perimeter of my apartment, trying to process the raw, nauseating betrayal. Mark, my husband, was complicit, even if unknowingly, by agreeing to present the gift. His blind loyalty to his mother had always been a fault, but this time, it was an offense. I pulled out my laptop and placed it on the kitchen counter, the cool metal a grounding weight against my rising tide of anger. No tears came. Only a cold, crystalline resolve. The Amelia they expected, the one who would retreat, cry, and possibly beg Mark to intervene, was gone. In her place was the CEO, the architect, the strategist. I needed to see the details again, laid bare. I carefully used my work phone's advanced decryption tools to access Mark's cloud backup. It was a breach of privacy, yes, but when your reputation and livelihood are targeted, ethics become secondary to survival. It took less than 15 minutes. Clara, utterly inept with technology despite her expensive phone, had accidentally synced a crucial Gala Notes document to a shared family folder, assuming only Patricia accessed it. It was all there, the seating chart, the detailed minute-by-minute timeline of the evening, and, most damningly, the full text of the citation. I read the text slowly, every word a shard of glass. It wasn't just about the failed pitch, it twisted my company's mission, to use AI for municipal improvement, into a critique of my over-reliance on untested, algorithmic fantasies, suggesting I was dangerous and irresponsible with public trust. The document even included a carefully worded suggestion that Mark's own career advancement was being hampered by my unstable and nouveau-riche public image. It was designed to sow discord in my professional life, isolate me from my network, and, most likely, break up my marriage. This was not a mistake. This was a war crime. I closed the document and leaned back, exhaling a long, slow breath. The decision was made. There would be no negotiation, no compromise, and no mercy. The Stones revered only two things: their immaculate, inherited public image, their legacy, and their private, carefully hoarded wealth. My revenge had to hit both. It had to be delivered publicly, like theirs, but its devastation had to be financial and permanent. I needed a gift that, when unwrapped, would not just ruin the party, but change the Stones' entire financial reality. I began to formulate the parameters of my counter-strike. It had to be legal, untraceable back to me initially, and perfectly timed. It had to be a consequence of their actions, a boomerang effect of their own hubris. First, I needed leverage. I opened a new browser window and began an exhaustive, deep dive search into Robert Stone's various businesses and the Stone Family Charitable Endowment. A public charity, that was the jugular vein of their legacy. Patricia had mentioned Robert was giving Mr. Davies an exclusive on the endowment. That meant the endowment's purity and reputation were paramount. A non-profit was also subject to public financial scrutiny and tax laws, rules the Stones probably assumed their wealth could circumvent. I started digging into their publicly available 990 tax forms. Most people just glance at the top-line numbers, but I was an algorithm architect. I looked for patterns, anomalies, and discrepancies in the fine print, the parts where the numbers didn't quite reconcile with the public narrative. It was painstaking, boring work, but beneath the layers of clean accounting, I found something small, a tiny, repetitive transfer of funds to a shell LLC in the Cayman Islands, disguised as administrative fees for managing an obscure real estate asset. It was a classic, albeit small, tax dodge. Small, yes. But it was not about the amount of money. It was about the violation of the charity's integrity, the public exposure of their carefully curated ethical facade, and the timing of the reveal. The gala was their declaration of ethical, philanthropic superiority. To expose them as petty thieves cheating their own charity, on the night they were being profiled by the Sterling Review, would be socially fatal. My plan began to take shape. I wouldn't just send a gift. I would send a gift that triggered a chain reaction, ensuring their deepest, most private shame was instantly made public and viral. I would use my unique skills, my knowledge of systems, data, and timing, to execute the perfect, irreparable vengeance. This wasn't about being mean back. This was about justice, delivered with the precision of a surgical strike. The Stones wanted to play rough, and I was about to show them that my algorithms worked in the world of high-stakes revenge just as well as they did in city planning. The next few weeks would be the busiest of my life. I had to build my own bomb, and it had to be silent, flawless, and completely devastating. The deep dive into the Stone Family Charitable Endowment consumed me entirely over the next few days. I learned everything about the inner workings of their public facade. It was a masterpiece of presentation, glossy annual reports, photos of Patricia handing large, novelty checks to well-dressed recipients, and an overarching mission statement about preserving tradition and future prosperity. Beneath the shine, however, I found the anchor point of my revenge. The small, suspicious transfers I had noted in the 990 forms weren't just a tax dodge. They pointed to a much larger, almost comical vanity project. The real estate asset being managed by the Cayman LLC was a derelict vineyard in Tuscany. It wasn't an investment, it was an attempt by Robert to diversify the family name into European luxury wine, a pursuit they felt was befitting their legacy. The problem was, the vineyard was failing spectacularly, and the Stones were quietly funneling money from the charity, claiming it as management fees, to keep this private, losing venture afloat without exposing their own personal finances to the liability. It was illegal, unethical, and, given their public posturing, utterly hypocritical. The total sum was small enough that it hadn't triggered any major audits yet, but large enough that its public exposure would constitute major fraud and scandal. My revenge would center on this vineyard, the Stones' secret, failing vanity project, paid for by the charity they used to buy social currency. I began to construct the perfect mechanism. The gift itself had to be innocuous, almost a joke, to ensure it was opened publicly. I decided on a bottle of wine. Not an expensive, rare vintage, but the cheapest, most pathetic wine that the failing Tuscan vineyard, Vino della Vergogna, wine of shame, as I privately dubbed it, actually produced. I found a way to order a case anonymously through a private importer who was not directly connected to the stones, ensuring it arrived perfectly packaged. The real gift wouldn't be the wine itself, but the label. Using my company's resources, the high-definition printing equipment and my specialized contacts in secure digital media, I created a custom, flawless wine label. It looked perfectly legitimate, except for 3 lethal alterations. First, the name. I changed the name from the generic Te di Siena to a highly specific, damning title, The Stone Family Charitable Reserve, Harvest of Fees. This directly linked the private venture to the public charity. Second, the description. The small print text, usually boasting about the terroir, instead contained a QR code. This code, when scanned, would not lead to a website, but to a beautifully rendered, easy-to-read infographic I had designed, which summarized the tax fraud, showing the 990 filings and the specific, disguised transfers to the Cayman LLC. Third, the seal. I replaced the vineyard's crest with the official logo of the Sterling Review, the very publication that would be profiling them at the gala. This ensured that the moment the bottle was seen, everyone, especially Mr. Davies, the reporter, would believe it was an official, if highly unusual, commemorative item. I worked meticulously, late into the night. My apartment became a temporary laboratory of digital warfare. I didn't want the scandal to break on an anonymous blog. I wanted it to be undeniable, instantly accessible, and perfectly sourced. I set up a dedicated, untraceable server to host the infographic and the damning documents, protected by layers of algorithmic encryption that would only dissolve once the QR code was scanned by the first person. This was my digital fuse. The exposure had to be instant, public, and viral. The focus required was immense, and I realized I had become a different person. The resentful, timid daughter-in-law had been replaced by a predator. Mark, meanwhile, was completely oblivious. He'd noticed my late hours, but assumed I was working on a new project after the setback. He was wrapped up in his own duties for the gala, attending to Patricia's endless demands for RSVPs and seating arrangements. When he asked me about my weekend, I simply told him I was building a new system of accountability, which, technically, wasn't a lie. He nodded vaguely, reassured by the mention of my work, and went back to checking table linens. His ignorance was both a shield and a fresh source of pain. I realized that Mark was incapable of seeing the Stone family's behavior for what it was. He was so deeply enmeshed in their toxic dynamic that he saw their malice as high expectations and their manipulation as tradition. The vineyard, Vino della Vergogna, arrived via express courier on a Tuesday afternoon. It was perfect. A dark, unremarkable bottle, now carrying a custom label that held the full, explosive weight of their public shame. I looked at the bottle, sitting innocently on my kitchen counter. This wasn't just revenge, it was an act of surgical justice. They wanted to attack my professional integrity? I would obliterate the one thing that gave them theirs, their carefully constructed, high society reputation. The gift was ready. The fuse was set. Now I just had to wait for the perfect moment to light the match, ensuring the resulting inferno consumed their gilded cage entirely. The anticipation was intoxicating, a clean, powerful adrenaline that made me feel more alive than I had in years. The week leading up to the gala was a tense, silent war waged entirely within my mind. I had the weapon, the deceptively simple bottle of custom-labeled wine, and the digital fuse. The only remaining challenge was execution and navigating the rising suspicion from my husband. Mark was starting to pick up on the disconnect. I was withdrawn, spending all my free moments on my computer, and when I looked at him, my expression must have been too neutral, too guarded. He didn't know the depth of his family's betrayal, but he sensed a distance growing between us, a tectonic shift in our relationship that he couldn't name. One evening, he followed me into the small study I used as a home office. I quickly minimized the screen showing the logistics for the package delivery. "Amelia, what's going on?" he asked, his voice low and genuinely troubled. He hadn't asked in a while, and the concern in his eyes made my resolve momentarily waver. "Nothing, Mark. Just a lot of pressure after the failed pitch. I'm restructuring some protocols," I lied smoothly, relying on the business jargon he rarely challenged. He walked over and placed his hands on my shoulders, attempting a connection I had already severed in my heart. "I know you're upset about the contract, but Mom and Dad are just trying to help you. That's why the gala is so important this year. It's a chance to show face, to smooth things over with the right people." His words, intended as comfort, were like a bucket of ice water. They're trying to help. He still believed it. He was a good man, I realized, but fatally naive about the stone's predatory nature. He was incapable of defending me because he was incapable of seeing the attack. "And what exactly am I supposed to show face doing, Mark?" I asked, turning to face him, keeping my tone level. "Am I supposed to recite quarterly earnings or just stand there and look pretty? You know what I mean. Just be gracious. Mom has this little surprise planned. A special recognition for your hard work this year," he hedged, avoiding my eyes. He clearly knew about the gift, but was convinced it was genuinely supportive. Special recognition. The memory of the notarized document, designed to publicly destroy my credibility, flashed through my mind. I pulled away gently. "I appreciate the thought, Mark, but my recognition comes from my clients and my balance sheets, not a forced spectacle in your mother's drawing room." "Why are you making this so difficult?" he pleaded, exasperated. "It's one night, Amelia. Can't you just swallow your pride and play the role for once? It's family." That was the breaking point. "Don't use that word with me, Mark. Family. They are planning to professionally humiliate me. They are actively trying to undermine my entire career and reputation. And you, knowing something is up, are asking me to play the role." I stopped short of revealing everything. I couldn't tell him about the document. If he saw the cruelty, he would have to confront his mother, and I knew he wouldn't. He would just try to mediate, to stop me from striking back. He frowned, genuinely confused by the intensity of my reaction. "Humiliate you? That's dramatic, Amelia. They just want you to be a part of the traditions. Maybe they'll get you a nice piece of jewelry." I forced a tight, cold smile. "Yes, Mark. Maybe they will. But I prefer to bring my own gifts now. Gifts that have a little more impact." The conversation ended there, leaving a gaping silence between us. He went to bed, defeated and confused, and I stayed up, finalizing the logistics. I felt a pang of genuine grief, not for the loss of my marriage, but for the loss of the man I thought I had married, a man who would stand by me, not passively watch his mother prepare the executioner's block. The next day, I made the final preparations for the actual delivery. I had the custom-labeled bottle placed inside a beautiful, antique wooden wine presentation box, sealing it with a large, ornate wax seal featuring a generic, elegant-looking monogram, something Patricia would assume was an expensive, last-minute purchase from a chic French boutique. Inside the box, tucked beneath the velvet lining, I placed a small, simple card that read only, "To the Stone family legacy. Unwrap at the Zenith. With love and accountability, A." At the Zenith meant after Robert's toast, when Patricia would prompt Mark to present their malicious gift. That would be the peak of their evening, the moment of maximum exposure. I arranged for the package to be delivered by a bespoke, high-end courier service, the kind the Stones used, at exactly 7:30 p.m. on the night of the gala, ensuring it would arrive after all the other deliveries, drawing immediate attention. The courier was instructed to say it was a highly valuable, personal gift, requiring signature from Mrs. Patricia Stone herself. This was the final, critical step. It ensured Patricia would treat it like a prized, expensive token, and that it would be placed prominently, waiting to be revealed. I was leveraging their vanity against them. They wouldn't discard an expensive-looking gift delivered by a special service. They would want to showcase it. With the gift securely scheduled for delivery, I felt a deep, terrifying calm settle over me. I looked at my reflection. The woman staring back was colder, sharper, and dangerously focused. The Amelia they knew was gone. The architect of the stone's downfall was ready. The final days crawled by, each tick of the clock bringing me closer to the explosion. My life was now perfectly compartmentalized. The professional side, where I continued to run Vance Urbanics with flawless efficiency, and the private side, where I was meticulously preparing an act of social sabotage. The tension with Mark was palpable, hanging in the air like a thick fog. He had retreated into a defensive posture, occupying himself with last-minute errands for his mother, his silence a clear sign of his unspoken disapproval of my attitude. He was annoyed that I wasn't being the compliant, supportive wife his mother expected. The distance only served to sharpen my focus. I stopped trying to rationalize my actions to Mark or to myself. They had planned to destroy me. I was simply choosing self-preservation via counter-strike. I spent a morning running final diagnostics on the digital payload. The QR code on the wine label led to the untraceable server, which was configured to push the incriminating infographic and documents, the 990 filings and the Kaiman LLC transfers, to 3 specific targets, the moment the link was accessed for the first time. The targets were Mr. Davies's direct, encrypted email. The reporter from the Sterling Review who was supposed to write my obituary would instead get the scoop of his career. A highly trafficked, anonymous financial watchdog blog. This guaranteed the viral spread beyond the elite bubble. The official public inquiries inbox of the IRS's charity division. This ensured legal repercussions would swiftly follow the public scandal. The algorithm was elegant, a single scan, and the Stone's reputation would be obliterated on 3 distinct fronts simultaneously: society, public opinion, and legal enforcement. On the afternoon of the 22nd, I was invited back to the estate for the final walkthrough and a mandatory rehearsal dinner. I dreaded it, but attending was crucial. I needed to observe the terrain and ensure my understanding of the timing was precise. When I arrived, the mansion was a hive of activity. Florists were arranging absurdly large bouquets, and caterers moved with hushed, military efficiency. Patricia was everywhere, inspecting every detail, her face alight with the thrill of total control. I found Mark in the dining room, adjusting a silver napkin ring with a look of concentration that was entirely disproportionate to the task. "Amelia. Good, you're here," he said, not looking up. "Please, just follow Mom's lead tonight. No comments about the wine or the furniture. Just be cooperative." "I'm always cooperative, Mark," I replied, the lie tasting like ash. "I just cooperate with the truth." He sighed, dropping the napkin ring. "I'm tired of this, Amelia. This family gave me everything. My entire life is built on their foundation. When you attack them, you attack me." His declaration, his complete fusion with the Stone apparatus, was the final, surgical cut I needed. He saw me as the attacker, not the victim. He saw my independence as a threat to his comfort. "I understand that, Mark," I said, walking away. "And I hope you understand that my foundation is built on my own integrity. I won't let anyone undermine that." During the rehearsal dinner, a stiff, 2-hour affair featuring a lengthy, self-congratulatory speech by Robert, I focused my attention on the layout of the drawing room. The spot where Robert would give his grand toast was exactly where the humiliation was planned. The table where the gifts would be placed was a small, antique pedestal near the massive Christmas tree. Patricia, during a brief moment alone, approached me, her smile too wide, too saccharine. "Amelia, I'm so glad you're attending tomorrow night," she purred, placing a possessive hand on my arm. "It's important that we present a united front, dear. You need to show that you are fully committed to the Stone family, now more than ever. I assure you, Patricia, tomorrow night I will demonstrate my commitment to accountability, I said, matching her smile with one of my own that, I knew, contained zero warmth. She blinked, momentarily thrown by my choice of words, but she recovered quickly, dismissing it as my usual, annoying business jargon. Good. Now, you must wear the emerald dress, dear. It really pops against the silver decorations, she instructed. It was a dress she had personally picked out, a vibrant green that was stylish but also entirely impractical for my figure, designed, I suspected, to make me look slightly awkward. I agreed without protest. Why not? If I was going to detonate a social bomb, I should look spectacular doing it. I returned home late, the wooden presentation box waiting by the door. The simple act of checking on it, confirming the delivery was scheduled and the digital fuse was armed, brought a wave of powerful exhilaration. The feeling wasn't about vengeance, but about control. They had tried to write my role, but tomorrow night, I would be the director, the screenwriter, and the star of the whole, glorious catastrophe. I went to bed, not nervous, but excited. The collapse of the Stone legacy was now an inevitability, an algorithm I had personally written. The only unknown variable was the precise volume of the resulting scream. I slept soundly for the first time in weeks. December 23rd dawned cold and crisp, a perfect winter's day, the kind of aggressively cheerful weather that demanded a major social event. I spent the morning at my office, clearing my desk. Not because I was leaving the company, but because I needed absolute clarity and no lingering distractions before the inevitable fallout. My team noticed my heightened focus, but attributed it to the post-pitch restructuring. I was sharp, decisive, and terrifyingly efficient. I was closing off loose ends, securing legal documents, and ensuring that Vance Urbanix was bulletproof against any Stone retaliation. Around noon, I received a confirmation email. The bespoke courier service had acknowledged the package for delivery. The wooden wine box was in transit. The bomb was on its way. The afternoon was dedicated to my physical preparation. I retrieved the emerald green dress Patricia had insisted upon. I looked at it not as a uniform of submission, but as the perfect costume for the role of the vengeful architect. I didn't care if it made me look awkward. Tonight, attention was the goal. I spent an hour with a professional makeup artist, a splurge I rarely indulged in. I wanted a look that was polished, untouchable, and slightly intimidating. When I finished, the woman looking back from the mirror was not the nervous, eager to please Amelia of previous galas. This Amelia was a weapon, perfectly honed and ready for deployment. As I dressed, the silence of the apartment felt heavy with anticipation. Mark was already gone, having left early to handle critical, last-minute details for his mother. I knew he was probably ensuring the notary's document was positioned correctly and the faux antique necklace was sparkling just right. Around 6 p.m., I finally put on the emerald dress. It was tight, yes, but its vibrant color made me feel noticeable. I added a single, geometric silver cuff, a piece I had bought myself with my first major company bonus, a tangible symbol of my own, self-made success. No Stone heirlooms, no fake antique necklaces. Before I left, I made a final check of the news feeds and social media landscape. Everything was calm. Mr. Davies, the Sterling Review reporter, had just posted a cryptic tweet about the glamour and gravitas of old money. Perfect. The stage was set. My drive to Greenwich felt meditative. I was no longer rushing. I was moving with the slow, deliberate certainty of a natural force. I thought of Patricia, waiting in her grand hall, rehearsing her lines, anticipating the moment of my public shame. She saw me as a minor player in her carefully crafted drama. She was about to find out that I was the entire production company. When I pulled up to the Stone estate, the driveway was already lined with Bentleys, Ferraris, and vintage Jaguars. The house itself was ablaze with light, shimmering in the cold night like a giant, blindingly opulent Christmas ornament. Valets rushed to open doors, and the air was filled with the low hum of expensive conversation. I stepped out of my car, the cold air hitting the exposed skin of my shoulders. As I approached the front door, I saw it, or rather, I saw the empty space where it should have been. The small pedestal table near the Christmas tree, the place reserved for the gifts, was currently empty. I checked my watch. 7:15 p.m. The courier was due in 15 minutes. I forced myself to be calm. The timing was crucial. I couldn't afford to be late. I walked through the towering doors and into the suffocating warmth of the gala. Patricia spotted me instantly. Her eyes, usually cold, glinted with a proprietary satisfaction. She crossed the room, moving past a knot of hedge fund managers and their impeccably dressed wives. "Amelia, you wore the emerald. Wonderful," she exclaimed, kissing the air beside my cheek. "You look vibrant. Now, you must socialize, dear. Mr. Davies is here already. He is quite looking forward to your husband's announcement later." "I'm sure he is, Patricia," I replied, my voice perfectly pitched to convey polite anticipation. "I'm looking forward to it myself. It sounds like quite the event." I accepted a glass of champagne, this time making sure it was full strength. I needed a clear head, but the ritual felt necessary. The room was filling up, a glittering landscape of inherited wealth and polished ambition. I saw Mr. Davies, the reporter, chatting intently with Robert Stone by the fireplace. Robert was holding court, expansive and self-satisfied. I moved away, mingling just enough to appear sociable, but keeping my focus trained on the front hall. At precisely 7:35 p.m., the moment arrived. A new valet appeared in the doorway, holding a large, antique wooden box. He was followed by a manager from the courier company, who spoke directly to Patricia. "Mrs. Stone, a highly valuable, personal gift has just arrived. Requires your signature, madam," the courier representative said, making the delivery sound incredibly important. Patricia's eyes widened slightly. A secret, expensive gift? She had to display it. Her vanity took the bait instantly. She signed the clipboard with a flourish. "Perfect timing. Place it right here, Michael," she commanded, pointing to the empty pedestal table, the gift table, right next to the Christmas tree, visible to the entire main floor. The box was placed. It was perfect, elegant, mysterious, and now the focal point of the room. A beautiful, deceptive anchor waiting to be pulled. I watched, heart pounding with a cold, powerful excitement. The wine was on the stage. Now, all I had to do was wait for the zenith. The Stearns had planned a show, but they had given me the perfect prop for my counter show. The final countdown had begun. The next hour was agony, but a controlled, calculated agony. The chatter in the room was deafening, fueled by expensive wine and the glow of self-importance. I stood near the edge of the crowd, watching the antique box gleam under the chandelier light. Several guests paused by the gift table, speculating on the contents of the beautifully sealed box. Patricia would shoo them away with a secretive smile. "A surprise. Must wait for the toast, darling." She was already relishing the idea of a secret, expensive token of admiration. Around 8:45 p.m., the signal came. Robert Stone tapped a sterling silver spoon against his champagne flute, the sharp ping instantly silencing the room. The moment of the zenith had arrived. Robert, tall and imposing, began his address. He spoke of legacy, tradition, and the importance of philanthropic duty. He smoothly transitioned to the announcement of the Stone family charitable endowment's record-breaking year, giving a specific, approving nod to Mr. Davies, the reporter. The air was thick with self-congratulation. I kept my face politely attentive, but inside, I was a coiled spring, waiting for the first detonation. "And now," Robert boomed, his voice swelling with paternal pride, It is time to recognize one member of our family who has, shall we say, a challenging position to maintain. We all know that joining a family of such history can be intimidating, especially for someone who comes from a different background. My jaw tightened. Here it was. The setup. The subtle, necessary insult. Robert smiled at Mark, then at me. Mark, my boy, you have done well. And now, I want you to present a small token of the family's support and encouragement to your wife, Amelia. A gift that reminds her that while competence is important, character and pedigree are everything. Mark, looking terribly earnest and completely blind, approached me, holding a small, velvet box, the one containing the fake antique necklace. Amelia, he said, his voice softer, slightly hesitant. We love you, and we want you to feel accepted. This is a family heirloom we've refurbished just for you. I took the small box. It was a moment designed to crush me, accepting a token of acceptance after being publicly reminded that I lacked the pedigree for it. And now, Amelia, darling, open the accompanying card, Patricia instructed from across the room, her voice dripping with triumphant sweetness. Her eyes sparkled with malice. She couldn't wait to see my face fall when I read the notarized summary of my professional failure. I opened the box Mark had given me. I looked at the hideous, gaudy necklace, a physical symbol of the gilded cage they wanted to lock me in. I did not open the card. Instead, I held up the necklace for a moment and then, with a perfectly audible sigh of disappointment, I dropped it. It clattered against the hardwood floor, a tiny, insignificant sound that felt deafening in the silence. No, Mark, I said, projecting my voice clearly. I think the family's true support should be reflected in a gift that matters. A gift that symbolizes accountability. I walked past Mark, moving with deliberate slowness toward the pedestal table where the wooden box sat today. The entire room watched. Patricia's face was a mask of confusion and mounting rage. This was not in her script. What are you doing, Amelia? She hissed, taking a sharp step forward. I reached the box, my fingers tracing the ornate wax seal. The truth, Patricia, is that the only gift I care about is the one I brought for you. I lifted the lid of the presentation box, revealing the single, dark, unmarked bottle of wine. I removed it carefully and held it up, allowing the chandelier light to catch the custom label. I addressed the room, my voice ringing with clarity and absolute conviction. Ladies and gentlemen, the Stern family has just spoken so beautifully about philanthropy and legacy. I want to share a gift that Robert and Patricia have been preparing in secret, a truly private project that demonstrates their dedication to their charitable goals. I held up the bottle for everyone to see the newly printed name, the Stern Family Charitable Reserve, Harvest of Fees. A ripple of confused, murmuring laughter spread through the crowd. Wine? As a surprise reveal? It was bizarre. I saw Mr. Davies, the reporter, frown and pull out his phone, sensing something was wrong. I looked directly at Patricia. This is a very exclusive bottle, Patricia. And it comes with its own unique vintage description. I turned the bottle, pointing to the meticulously crafted QR code on the label. For those of you who appreciate the true transparency of a private reserve, you'll find the Sterns have included a full, data-driven profile of this vineyard's funding, complete with tax documents, right here on the label. I paused. The noise level in the room had dropped to a dangerous hush. Robert Stern, seeing the new label and its implications, was suddenly chalk white. Before Patricia could move, before Robert could yell, Mr. Davies, fueled by journalistic instinct and proximity, stepped forward. A QR code? He asked, pulling his phone right up to the bottle. That's unusual. He scanned the code. The silence that followed was the moment of detonation. The server immediately recognized the first scan, executed the algorithmic push, and simultaneously opened the infographic on Davies's phone, while sending the data packets to the IRS and the financial blog. Davies's eyes widened, then narrowed in shock, then widened again in pure, predatory excitement. He wasn't looking at me, he was looking at the damning figures on his screen. He didn't say a word. He just began typing furiously, already drafting his front-page exposé. The humiliation planned for me had been instantly derailed. The show was over, and my counter-show had just begun, starting with the horrified, silent realization on Patricia Stern's face. She knew, in that single, frozen instant, that I had not only discovered their plot, but I had just burned down the very foundation of their legacy. The silence lasted only a few seconds, but it was the most potent, charged silence I have ever experienced. It was the moment before the thunderclap. Mr. Davies was the first catalyst, his frantic typing immediately signaling to everyone that he had found something explosive, something far more compelling than Robert's self-congratulatory speech. Then, the murmuring began, rapidly morphing into gasps and accusations. Patricia, her face contorted in a terrifying mix of bewilderment and blinding rage, finally found her voice. "Amelia, what have you done? That's not a gift. What is on that label?" I met her eyes, for the first time, truly equal to her, not a supplicant. "It's accountability, Patricia. The one thing you forgot to include in your legacy." Robert Stern, having rushed over to peer over Davies's shoulder, let out a strangled, choked noise. He had seen the name of the Kaiman LLC, the transfer dates, the summarized tax fraud, all laid bare in a professional, irrefutable infographic. His entire posture collapsed. "That's classified. That's confidential," he bellowed, his face turning a dangerous shade of crimson. His voice, usually so commanding, cracked with panic. His panic was the second catalyst. When the patriarch loses control, the structure fails. One of the guests, a prominent banker who sat on the endowment board, pulled out his own phone and scanned the QR code. His expression moved from curiosity to sheer horror as he saw the evidence for himself. "Robert, is this true? Funneling charity funds? This is going to destroy the endowment," he whispered, though the volume of panic in his voice made it carry across the elegant room. Within moments, half the room was scanning the code, and the other half was frantically calling their lawyers and publicists. The gala had instantly transformed into a chaos of whispers, flashing phone screens, and open-mouthed shock. The curated perfection of the Stern Christmas was dissolving into a sticky, ugly mess. The viral element was already in play. I knew the moment the first person scanned the code, the documents were pushed to the Watchdog blog. Within 5 minutes, the headline would be trending across high-net-worth social feeds globally. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my champagne, savoring the moment. This wasn't just revenge, it was a perfect system failure. Then, Mark arrived. He rushed through the crowd, his eyes wide and panicked. He saw his mother screaming at me, his father hunched over in what looked like an impending stroke, and a reporter frantically typing. "Amelia, what is happening? What did you give them?" Mark demanded, grabbing my arm, his grip hard and desperate. "The truth, Mark," I said calmly. "The truth about the Vino della Vergogna, the vineyard they're secretly propping up with charity money, the money you told me they use for good works." He stared at me, then back at his father. He was finally forced to see the ugly reality beneath the stern veneer. His face was a battlefield of confusion, anger, and betrayal. "How could you do this? This is our family. This is my life, Amelia," he yelled, his voice cracking with genuine pain. "They were going to ruin my life, Mark. Tonight. They planned a public character assassination to discredit my business and ensure I could never escape their control," I countered, my voice firm and clear, loud enough for those nearby to hear. I needed to establish my side of the story immediately. Patricia, seeing her son's pain and realizing the depth of my counterattack, pointed a trembling, manicured finger at me. "She's lying. She's mentally unstable. She's bitter because of her business failures," she shrieked, her perfect composure finally snapping. I smiled again, a genuine, icy smile. Am I, Patricia? Let's talk about my bitterness. I know about the notarized document, the gift Mark was supposed to give me. The one you prepared with your lawyer to professionally slander me. I read the script, Patricia. The revelation silenced even the murmuring guests. The idea of a mother-in-law stooping to legal slander against her son's wife was shocking, even for this crowd. Mark recoiled as if struck. He looked at his mother, then at me. The realization that I was not the villain, but a highly effective survivor, was crushing him. I shrugged off his hand. My job was done here. You wanted to make a spectacle of me tonight? You succeeded. The spectacle is you, I said, looking from Patricia to Robert, who was now being half carried to a chair by a horrified Uncle George. I walked toward the front doors, my emerald dress flowing behind me. The sound of panic and phone calls was the music of my victory. I passed Mr. Davies, who looked up from his phone, a glint of respect in his eyes. He already had the full story. I stepped out of the Stern mansion and into the cool, clean night air. I had arrived in the golden cage, but I was leaving the fire. I felt the powerful, visceral relief of survival and the grim satisfaction of precision. The humiliation plan was dead. The Stern legacy was bleeding out on the polished hardwood floors of their beloved gala. And I was finally free. Stepping out of the overheated, chaotic mansion and into the frigid night felt like breaking the surface of a suffocating pool. The cold air was a shock, but it was a welcome, clean shock. I didn't rush. Rushing implies panic or flight, and I was doing neither. I was making an exit. My heart was still thundering, not from fear, but from the massive adrenaline dump following the execution of the plan. The sounds of the party, the raised voices, the screams of denial, the frantic ring of expensive cell phones, receded behind the heavy oak doors, replaced by the hushed movements of the valets. I retrieved my car from the parking assistant, who seemed oblivious to the social cataclysm he was guarding. The whole scene felt utterly surreal, a perfect Christmas setting, now tainted by a stench of scandal and financial ruin. As I pulled out of the driveway, I checked my phone. The notifications were already pouring in. Not from Mark, but from the algorithms I had set loose. The financial watchdog blog had published the expose, Charity or Shell Game. Stern Family Endowment exposed in Tuscan tax dodge. It was a direct, punchy headline, and the comments were already lighting up. I knew Mr. Davies wouldn't be far behind. He wouldn't risk losing the scoop to a blog, so the full, detailed version would be hitting the Sterling Review's website within minutes, cementing the scandal in the official record of high society. I drove for a few miles, allowing the calm, dark country roads to soothe my frayed nerves. I felt a profound sense of exhaustion, but also an incredible, intoxicating sense of liberation. The resentment I had carried for years, the constant need to prove myself, had been violently purged. Then, the first call came. It wasn't Mark. It was Clara. I pulled over to answer. Her voice was unrecognizable, stripped of its usual condescending veneer, high-pitched and hysterical. Amelia. You venomous little serpent. How dare you? Do you know what you've done? The bank just called Dad. They are freezing the endowment's accounts pending a review. He might lose the chairmanship. I'm sorry to hear that, Clara, I replied, my voice cool and even. But you shouldn't steal from a charity. It's bad form. You set us up. You came here to destroy us, she wailed. No, Clara. I came here to survive you, I corrected her. I came here because you and your mother planned to publish a slanderous document to ruin my business. I simply exposed your much more significant and actual criminal failure in front of the same audience you chose to witness my execution. I waited a beat. You underestimated me. That was your final mistake. Enjoy the headlines. Then, I hung up and immediately blocked her number. I had barely put the phone down when Mark's number flashed on the screen. I answered, knowing this was the conversation I couldn't avoid. Amelia, where are you? You have to come back. Fix this. Tell them it's a mistake. That it's fabricated. His voice was hoarse, ragged with desperation and fear. It's not fabricated, Mark. The 990 filings are public record. The Cayman transfers are real. Your father is a fraud, and your mother is a malicious architect of slander. Everything I presented is true, I said simply. You didn't have to do this. We could have talked. You could have told me, he argued, but the conviction was gone, replaced by a whining sense of victimhood. Talked? When? When your mother was planning to publicly gut my business and you were handing me the knife. I tried to tell you something was wrong, Mark, but you were too busy choosing their approval over your wife's dignity, I pointed out, the bitterness finally creeping into my tone. There was a long silence, filled only with his heavy, rattling breath. What about us, Amelia? He asked, the question small and broken. I looked at the road ahead, a dark, clear path leading away from Greenwich. There is no us where I have to sacrifice my integrity just to fit into their grotesque fantasy of a family. They forced me to choose, Mark. And I chose my career, my sanity, and my self-respect. I took a final, deep breath. Go home, Mark. Stand with your family. They're going to need all the support they can get for the inevitable legal battles. I've already contacted my divorce lawyer. I'll send you the papers soon. I didn't wait for his reply. I ended the call and placed my phone on silent. I wouldn't hear from him again tonight. The marriage was over, not because of the revenge, but because the Stones' malice had finally illuminated the fundamental cowardice in my husband. I drove on, leaving the world of the Stones in flames behind me. The humiliation they had planned for me was a private shame. The humiliation I delivered to them was about to be a global news item. I had survived, and the cost, while steep, felt worth every single penny of my newfound freedom. I arrived back at my apartment at nearly 11 p.m. The lights of the city felt vibrant and alive, a sharp contrast to the suffocating darkness of the Connecticut suburbs. I stripped off the emerald dress, the costume of the evening, and tossed it onto the floor, walking into my high-tech kitchen. I didn't need food, just data. I poured myself a neat glass of scotch, a luxury I had earned, and turned my focus to the digital battlefield. The tsunami I had engineered was now hitting the shore. The Sterling Review's website had crashed briefly under the traffic surge before reappearing with a full, detailed investigative report. Gala scandal. Top philanthropist Robert Stone linked to Tuscan tax fraud via charity endowment. The report was meticulous, citing the original 990 documents, the exact files my QR code had distributed, and featuring quotes from two major endowment board members who were already distancing themselves from Robert. Mr. Davies had done his job perfectly. The Stones' reputation in high society was instantly annihilated. They were no longer philanthropists. They were targets of a federal investigation and the butt of every expensive joke. The financial watchdog blog, meanwhile, was generating mass public outrage. The comments section was a firestorm of condemnation, focusing on the hypocrisy of the wealthy. The narrative had crystallized. The Stones, the embodiment of old money snobbery, were revealed to be common thieves, stealing from their own charity to prop up a failed vanity project. I watched a video clip someone had taken outside the gala, capturing the chaos of guests hurriedly leaving, shouting into phones, and looking utterly appalled. The clip quickly went from thousands to hundreds of thousands of views. The image of the Harvest of Fees wine bottle, captured from a terrible photo taken by an anonymous guest, was becoming the symbol of the scandal. The speed of the collapse was breathtaking. I had relied on the interconnectedness and instant judgment of the digital age, and it had delivered. Then, the professional fallout began. I watched as the stock price of the private equity firm where Mark was employed took a small, nervous dip, not due to any official wrongdoing on his part, but simply due to the proximity of the Stone name to scandal. Mark, The perfect son who relied on his family's veneer was now collateral damage of their shattered reputation. A notification popped up. A news outlet had reached out to Vanessa Bannox for comment. I had prepared for this, too. I had a pre-drafted, toast statement ready to go, asserting that I was aware of the developing situation, that it was a private family matter, and that my professional focus remained exclusively on my company's ethical growth and public service contracts. A clean, clinical divorce from the drama. I felt a surge of professional pride. I had used my skills, not to build a city, but to tear down a toxic structure, and the execution was flawless. The emotional toll, however, was catching up. The high of vengeance was starting to dissipate, leaving a heavy residue of grief. Mark called again, his message tearful, alternating between rage at me and panicked pleas for me to somehow use my genius to stop the media frenzy. He didn't understand that the system, once triggered, could not be recalled. I sat there, watching the numbers climb, the views, the shares, the mentions of Robert and Patricia Stone. I was a digital spectator to the explosion I had lit. It was satisfying, undeniably so. The malicious intent of the Stones, the way they had plotted to use my own success as the weapon against me, had been met with a proportionate, system-level response. They had wanted to define me by my one failure. I defined them by their hidden fraud. But in the quiet solitude of my apartment, I also felt the loneliness of my decision. The end of my marriage, the destruction of a connection, however flawed, was a heavy price. I was free, but freedom often comes with emptiness. I picked up the discarded velvet box Mark had given me, the one containing the fake antique necklace and the slanderous note. I opened the note, finally reading the text that was meant to be my undoing. The words were as vicious as I remembered, citing my unreliable methods and dangerous technology. I tore the note into tiny pieces and dropped it into the trash. It no longer had any power. The real story was already out, written not by their lawyer, but by the irrefutable truth of their tax documents. I finished my scotch. The night was young, and the scandal was just getting started. I knew tomorrow would bring lawyers, media calls, and intense scrutiny. But I was ready. I was an architect of systems, and I had just built my own independence from the wreckage of their supposed legacy. The Stones were ruined, and I was, finally, intact. The days following the gala were a blur of crisis management, legal maneuvering, and media avoidance. The story was everywhere, from the financial papers to the morning talk shows. The Stones were instantly toxic. The Harvest of Fees wine bottle became the viral image of holiday scandal, a symbol of high society hypocrisy. I engaged a high-powered divorce attorney, one known for handling complex, high-net-worth cases involving major public relations factors. My primary instruction was simple. I wanted a swift, clean break, citing irreconcilable differences, and an absolute minimum of contact with the Stone family. My lawyer, a sharp, empathetic woman named Eleanor, handled the initial flood of angry communication from Robert Stone's legal team. They threatened slander lawsuits, professional retaliation, and even criminal charges for accessing Clara's cloud storage. They're grasping at straws, Amelia, Eleanor advised me during a tense video call. The core issue is their tax fraud, not your data access. You exposed a verifiable crime. The context of their planned humiliation gives you a complete defense of necessity and self-defense against professional harm. The public and the court will see them as the perpetrators. Eleanor's words were a comforting shield. I had gambled my moral high ground, and it had paid off. The overwhelming weight of evidence against the Stones, combined with the extreme cruelty of their planned attack on me, painted me as the victim-turned-vigilante. The inevitable confrontation with Mark finally occurred 4 days later, in the neutral, sterile conference room of my lawyer's office. He arrived with his own legal counsel, looking utterly defeated. His expensive suit looked rumpled, and his usually precise haircut was a mess. When his lawyer left the room to discuss initial filings with Eleanor, Mark turned to me, his eyes blazing with a pathetic, exhausted fury. "You destroyed everything, Amelia. The company is under investigation. Dad's being forced off 3 boards. Clara's name is a joke in the non-profit world. And you're sitting there, looking like the hero of some revenge film." He spat out, his voice a low, painful rasp. "I didn't destroy anything, Mark," I countered, leaning back in my chair, calm and composed. "Your parents built their house on a foundation of lies and fraud. I simply removed the facade, and the structure fell. That collapse was inevitable. The only difference is, I chose the timing." "And what about me? I never hurt you. I was just trying to keep the peace." "That's the problem, Mark. You chose the peace of the Stearns over the integrity of your wife. When your mother planned to professionally destroy me, you saw it as a small surprise. Your inaction was your choice. Your complicity was your betrayal." I slid a small, white envelope across the table. It contained a document detailing the split of our assets, a generous, fair split that required no dispute. I didn't want their money, I just wanted my freedom. "I'm leaving the marriage, Mark. I want nothing from the Stearns. Just their permanent silence," I said. He picked up the document, his hands shaking. He looked at the fairness of the offer and then back at me, the confusion clouding his features. "Why? If you wanted revenge, why are you being so fair now? Why don't you take everything?" "Because I don't need your money, Mark. My success is real. My integrity is my currency," I explained, rising from my seat. "Your family planned to use a moment of false generosity to commit professional murder. I used a moment of transparency to commit social suicide on their behalf. I did it for myself, not for profit." I walked toward the door. "You can stay here and sort out the details with Eleanor. I'm done." He didn't try to stop me. He just sat there, the crumpled paper of the divorce settlement in his hand, a man realizing that his entire, privileged life had been a mirage, and the woman he married, the one he was supposed to control, was the one who saw the truth and dared to act on it. Outside, the world felt less gray. My company, Vance Urbanics, was weathering the storm perfectly. The controversy had paradoxically given me a new, powerful brand. The CEO who valued accountability over politeness. My business contacts, initially wary, were now impressed by my ruthless efficiency and control. The narrative had shifted. I was the phoenix, rising from the ashes of the old money establishment. I was no longer just the algorithm architect, I was the accountability architect. The Christmas gala had failed to humiliate me. Instead, it had launched me. I walked out of the legal building and into the sunlight, a free woman, ready to face the new year, and the new, viral legacy I had inadvertently created. New Year's Eve arrived, marking a clear boundary between my old life and the new. While the Stearns were likely huddled in their mansion, licking their wounds and consulting lawyers, I was hosting a small, intentional gathering of my closest friends and business partners, people who genuinely respected my work and my ethics. The Harvest of Fees scandal was still a fixture in the news cycle, a delicious, high society disaster perfectly timed for the end of the year. The IRS had formally opened an inquiry into the Stone family charitable endowment, and Robert Stearns' name had been officially removed from several prestigious boards. The destruction was complete and ongoing. My divorce was proceeding swiftly and quietly, thanks to the non-contested nature of my settlement offer. Mark had signed the papers, defeated. I was financially separated and legally free. I had also become an unexpected viral sensation. My story, the outsider who turned the tables on her malicious, elite in-laws using data and precision, resonated fiercely with the public. I was getting unsolicited offers for interviews, book deals, and even a documentary series. I turned them all down. I refused to become a reality star. My dignity, the thing the Stearns had tried to steal, was not for sale. I had executed the revenge for justice, not for fame. However, I realized that silence was no longer an option. I needed to control my own narrative, to officially transition from the scandal figure to the accountability CEO. On New Year's Day, I published a single, concise open letter on the Vansa Bannock's blog. It was the first time I had addressed the situation publicly and directly. The letter was clinical and unemotional, focusing entirely on professional ethics. I never mentioned the word revenge, Patricia, or Mark. Instead, I wrote about the fundamental importance of transparency in the digital age, the necessity of accountability in power structures, and the personal commitment required to uphold integrity in business. I cited my company's mission, to use algorithms for good, to ensure clear, verifiable data drives better decisions, and concluded that this same principle must apply to all aspects of life, including philanthropy and personal relationships. I ended the letter with a powerful statement. When the foundational principles of integrity and respect are violated, all systems, whether a city or a family, must undergo immediate and decisive restructuring. I have chosen to restructure my own life, focusing entirely on building systems that endure, systems founded on verifiable truth. The response was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. It wasn't just a divorce announcement, it was a manifesto. The media seized on it, rebranding me as the accountability architect. My business thrived instantly. New contracts flowed in from organizations seeking a partner known for ruthless integrity. Later that evening, sitting alone in my newly peaceful apartment, I felt a flicker of something akin to closure. I hadn't destroyed the Stearns out of spite, but to reclaim my own identity. I opened my work phone and found a single, non-urgent email waiting for me. It was from Uncle George, the one who collected scotch and always laughed at Clara's jokes. It was short and cryptic. Subject: The Shepherdess. Body: Amelia. I saw what you did. It was brutal, but I understand why. You were the only one who had the courage. The shepherdess is gone. Patricia smashed it during her breakdown. She said it was vile, bourgeois trash. Ironic, isn't it? Happy New Year. Gee. I leaned back, a genuine, slow smile spreading across my face. The porcelain shepherdess, Patricia's prized symbol of their curated legacy, was broken. The symbol of the golden cage was shattered by its own mistress, in a fit of rage catalyzed by my actions. It was the perfect, final detail, a poetic justice that money couldn't buy. The physical manifestation of their snobbery was reduced to shards, just like their reputation. I toasted the empty room with my scotch. My New Year's resolution was simple: to live a life so profoundly successful and ethical that the Stearns' ruin would simply be a forgotten footnote in my history. I had won the war, and now, it was time to build my empire on the moral high ground I had so violently claimed. The future was vast, terrifying, and completely mine. 2 months passed, and the echoes of the Christmas gala continued to reverberate through the elite strata of society. The Stearns were no longer merely disgraced, they were pariahs. Robert was facing significant legal exposure, and the family was selling off minor properties to cover escalating legal fees. The Greenwich mansion was strangely silent, its aggressive cheer replaced by a palpable, freezing isolation. For me, life had accelerated. Vansa Bannock's was flourishing. The publicity, which I carefully controlled through strategically brief, integrity-focused statements, had elevated my company from a well-respected niche firm to a global symbol of ethical technology. I was now fielding calls from sovereign wealth funds, not just city councils. I had moved offices to a sprawling floor in a newly developed building, complete with panoramic views of the city I was now helping to shape. I was living proof that ruthlessness, when combined with high ethical standards, could be a devastatingly effective business strategy. The personal side remained clean. My divorce was finalized in late February. The process was mercifully swift, and Mark remained distant. He had left his job at the private equity firm and was reportedly staying in the guest wing of the Stern mansion, refusing to speak to anyone except his mother's dwindling legal team. He had chosen the cage over freedom, even after the bars were broken. I hadn't seen Patricia or Clara since the gala. I assumed they were cloistered, plotting some impossible resurrection. But the system I had triggered, legal, financial, and reputational, was too powerful for any mere social maneuvering. One crisp March afternoon, I received a package at my office. It was a heavy, unmarked box, delivered by a regular postal service, not a courier. My assistant, wary of potential Stern-related explosives, had it scanned before handing it to me. Inside was a single item, a dark, unlabeled bottle of wine. It was definitely the Vino della Vergogna. Tucked beneath the bottle was a small, handwritten note on thick, expensive stationery. The handwriting was recognizable, Clara's. Amelia. I know you won't reply, but I had to send this. It's the last one we have. The vineyard is being sold to cover Dad's initial fines. It's all gone. We lost everything we worked for, our reputation, our standing, the gala, even the endowment. You got exactly what you wanted. But there's something you need to understand about the truth. I read that document, the one you found. The one Mother and Dad drafted for the gala. It was horrible, yes. Malicious. But I want you to know this. Mark wrote the last paragraph. The one about your unstable methods and how they were hampering his own professional future. He gave it to Mother to add the necessary legal language. He didn't just participate, Amelia. He betrayed you first. It makes your revenge slightly less clean, doesn't it? Enjoy your new life. You deserve the success. We deserve the shame. But Mark deserved neither. Clara. I sat at my massive desk, the silence of the office floor swallowing the sudden, sharp intake of my breath. The letter dropped onto the polished wood. Mark. My naive, peace-loving, compromised husband. He hadn't just stood by, he had actively contributed to the text designed to dismantle my career. He had been a predator in sheep's clothing, using his mother's malice as a cover for his own professional envy and fear of my success. The revelation hit me with a stunning, profound force, not of pain, but of validation. I had grieved the loss of the man I thought was compromised, the weak man who was incapable of standing up to his mother. Now I knew the truth. I had lost a deceitful man who actively sought my destruction out of fear that I would eclipse him. The emotional ambiguity was instantly resolved. My divorce was not a necessary tragedy. It was an escape from a true, deep-seated enemy. My revenge was not just justified. It was a matter of total, uncompromised self-preservation. I picked up the bottle of wine, the last relic of their failed vanity project and my weapon of choice. I walked over to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline. I looked at the dark glass, contemplating the full, disgusting weight of Mark's final betrayal. I opened the bottle, but instead of drinking, I walked to the nearest office plant, a massive, healthy fern. I didn't pour it out onto the clean floor, that would be a waste. I poured the whole, pathetic bottle of Vino della Vergogna into the soil, watering the roots of my strong, healthy fern. The plant would thrive on the nutrients. The last vestige of the Stearns' toxicity would nourish my own growth. I crumpled Clara's note, the final echo of their malice, and dropped it into the waste bin. The revenge was complete, and the moral calculus was now perfectly clear. I had not ruined an innocent man, I had escaped a viper. It was early summer, 6 months since the gala, and the entire episode felt less like a personal crisis and more like a pivotal business case study. The media had moved on, the Stearns were a cautionary tale, and I was scheduled to deliver the keynote address at a major international technology conference, a clear symbol of my elevated status. I stood on the balcony of my penthouse apartment, overlooking the sparkling geometry of Manhattan. The city was my canvas, and I was its architect. The air was warm, carrying the faint, distant hum of progress. I was single, professionally dominant, and financially sovereign. The scars from the marriage and the confrontation were present, but they were now solid, polished badges of honor, reminders of the price of true independence. I thought about the entire sequence of events, the subtle, cutting insults, the shock of discovering the written plot, the meticulous planning of the harvest of fees, the cold, exhilarating detonation, and Mark's final, pathetic betrayal. I realized the most crucial element of the entire ordeal wasn't the brilliance of the revenge, but the clarity it had brought. The Stearns, with their gilded cage and their false generosity, had tried to convince me that my worth was secondary to their legacy. By attempting to destroy me, they had forced me to fully embrace my own power, my own ethics, and my own narrative. The viral success of the story wasn't just about Schadenfreude, it was about the universal appeal of accountability. People were tired of the powerful hiding behind their systems and their facades. I had used the very tools of the modern, transparent age, data, code, and instantaneous communication, to rip away a dishonest veneer. My phone buzzed. It was my assistant, reminding me of a dinner engagement with the city's mayor regarding a massive new infrastructure deal. A deal that would permanently integrate Vance Urbanic's technology into the core fabric of the city. A legacy built on substance, not inherited wealth or fraud. I smiled, a feeling of deep, profound peace settling over me. The revenge had been necessary, a brutal form of self-surgery. But the life that followed was the true reward. I walked back inside my apartment, which was now completely stripped of any lingering compromises or concessions to Mark's taste. It was clean, functional, and reflective of my own, unburdened success. The fern, watered with the wine of shame, was thriving, its leaves an aggressive, vibrant green. I stopped at my desk and looked at the framed print I kept there. It wasn't a family photo or a business award. It was a mock-up of the original Harvest of Fees wine label, without the QR code, but with the damning title and the sterling review crest. A quiet monument to the day I chose myself. I didn't regret the destruction. I didn't regret the loss of the marriage. The woman who walked into the stone gala was resentful and compromised. The woman who walked out was free. The Stearns had wanted to humiliate me into submission. Instead, I had created a gift, the gift of truth, that ruined their party, their reputation, and their entire future, while simultaneously launching mine. The future was unwritten, but one thing was certain, my story would never again be dictated by someone else's script. I was the author now, and my next chapter was going to be magnificent.